Occasionally, I get to bring you something spectacular. Something special. Well, this is the showstopper. It's the most special gun I own. And if I'm being honest, it's not even a close race, because it's something I didn't know could be done. Wait.
Is there anybody out there?
What you're looking at here is two Cabot vintage classics. Now, this particular vintage classic was actually how I met Cabot Guns. It was at SHOT Show of 2017. I walked into the Cabot booth. Cabot, to be perfectly honest, was not a company I was familiar with. And I was so impressed with the quality of their guns that I actually ordered this vintage classic on the spot. This vintage classic recently joined the family, making this a matching set. Now, matching sets are considered highly desirable by collectors, especially if they have consecutive serial numbers. But even if you have a set with consecutive serial numbers, there's one obvious fact here, which is that you have two right-hand guns. But Cabot has something to say about that. Cabot started in 2011, and I had a conversation with Rob Biankin, the CEO there, about how the idea for Inversion came up. According to him, they're at their first trade show, and someone walks up to the booth and says, hey, look, I've gone to every 1911 manufacturer and I've asked for a lefty 1911, and no one would do it, which is, let's be honest, to be expected. It is an immensely complex project to figure out how to make a completely inverted 1911. And while about 10% of the world's population is left-handed, again, we're dealing with a massive amount of intricate details that would have to go into making an inverted 1911. But there's one thing I know about Rob and the guys at Cabot, which is they love a challenge and they're obsessive perfectionists. So they get back from the trade show and Rob gets together with his crew. They're sitting around the table and they're having a discussion. He's like, what would it take to build a completely left-hand 1911? And I don't just mean a flipped ejection port, I mean an inverted gun. And according to Rob, the room goes silent and everyone starts, literally silent room for a matter of minutes, and everyone's going, yeah, we do that. And everyone starts eventually writing, and eventually heads start to nod, and everyone starts looking at everyone else going, we could do it. It would be complicated, but we could do it. SHOT Show 2012 rolls around and Cabot unveils the first left-hand 1911 called Southpaw. Awesome. And according to Rob, some of their most elaborate sets that they've ever done have been matching left-hand, right-hand guns. The price on these sets ranges anywhere from, call it $10,000 up to, let's call it north of $150,000. Take, for example, the Empire Damascus matching set. It is a righty-lefty combo where the slide, frame, and all the small parts are made from 120 layers of billet stainless steel, making an incredible Damascus pattern. But if that's not enough, these small parts, ranging from the sights, base pads, triggers, are made from 4.5 billion year old meteorite. Space rocks, everyone. We're talking about space rocks. If that's not enough, if you go look up this set or some of the matching sets that Cabot has done, the cases that they come in are some of the most stunning things you will ever see. Part of the reason Cabot can do projects like this is because they make all their own parts in-house. This may seem like an obvious statement to those of you that are in the know, but parts such as frames, it's very, very uncommon that manufacturers make their own frames. Same thing with AR lowers, for example. When you order a Cabot, this is how it starts off in life. So, for example, that's your Cabot frame, everyone. Just a chunk of billet. Want to know what your slide started, and it's heavy. Want to know what your slide started off looking like? There you go. There's your slide, everyone. Cabot's sister company is Alchemy Custom Weaponry. I love Alchemy, and this is no secret. We've had them on the show 3 or 4 times before, and I personally own guns from them. But Alchemy and Cabot are really, really different brands. Alchemy is old school. It's old school designs, very classic, and they're made using classic gunsmithing techniques, right? Men with files doing stuff, and it's really cool, and I love that heritage that goes into it. Cabot, you've got to think about in a slightly different light. Cabot, I think of more as a technology company. Because whereas Alchemy Gunsmith is using files, for example, to get a perfect slide to frame fit on a 1911, Cabot is largely relying on very intricate machining processes to make that same fitment. To show you an example, this is a frame and slide from Cabot. Now, due to a little bit of wind, it will be very tough for you to hear anything that's happening here. But what I can tell you is that this is a perfectly fit gun, okay? As perfectly fit as any whatever high-end 1911 that I own. But unlike those, no human has actually touched this. Because these are so perfectly machined, there was no need to remove burrs. There was no need to actually fit this. Cabot parts are machined so precisely that many of the parts are actually interchangeable in between guns. This frame and slide were not meant to specifically go together. They were simply perfectly machined and therefore perfectly go together. When we first started talking about left-hand 1911s, to be perfectly honest, I thought we were talking about a 1911 with a flipped ejection port, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but I would not call it like mind-blowing. It's not impressive, it's just cool. Of course, I should have known better than that, especially knowing the Cabot guys, knowing that they are obsessive perfectionists. From an engineering level, this is pretty mind-blowing because virtually everything has to get re-engineered. But the tricky thing is not everything needs to get re-engineered, and that's part of the trick of it, is figuring out, well, what orthodox parts will work in an inverted gun and what needs to be redone. So to just give you a sense for it, the magazines, right? Simple as that sounds, the magazines have to be redone. Why? Because the magazine release is on the other side of the gun, right? If we keep looking at the frame, we've got the slide release, right? We have, and it's very interesting because when I shoot this gun and when I go through reloads and the manual of arms, for the first time ever, I'm actually manipulating a gun like a right-handed shooter would do to a right-handed gun. And it's an oddly bizarre experience. If we look, of course, we have the safety, right? But if we look at the slide, we have, of course, the ejection port, and then much of the internal components. But to highlight two of what I think are the coolest things about the gun, so this is the left-hand gun. On my orthodox gun, we'll call it. If the serial number on my orthodox gun is, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then I can tell you that the serial number on my inverted gun is 765431. When I first got this and I saw, because they asked, they were like, any special requests? And I was like, could you do the same serial number but backwards? And they're like, yeah, we could do that. Why can they do that? Of course, because they make their own components and frames in-house. And when I saw the matching inverted serial numbers, it was a really, really cool moment. But to highlight the coolest part of the entire project to me is the barrel. Let me make sure I say this clearly. The bullet spins backwards. Cabot machines barrels specifically for the inversion project so that the bullet spins the opposite direction of an orthodox gun. One, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard about a gun. Two, it's actually functional because when I, as a lefty, shoot this left-handed gun, I am experiencing what a right-handed shooter experiences when they shoot a right-handed gun. I am having the actual experience of what John Moses Browning intended for us to have.
So why does inversion mean so much to me? Because the status quo is boring. I appreciate effort. I appreciate unique things. It's a chess move that challenges everyone else. It doesn't exist because there's any real functional need for it. I can tell you why it exists. It exists because it can. It exists because it was possible. It exists because it's America. It's Cabot Inversion. And it's the most special gun I own.